Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I've been trying to get John on for quite a while. I don't think I've had John Lott on the program before. He is, I've read his book, Freedomnomics. Awesome book. Love everything he writes. Probably his most famous book, certainly the one that's got the most press, was More Guns, Less Crime. This is true. You can compare two cities that demographically are very similar, Chicago and Detroit. Chicago rather, and Houston. And yet their crime rate, I think, is like 6 times more crime that involves gun violence in Chicago than in Houston. And it's not the weather. The weather isn't the big difference that causes this huge increase in crime. It is the way the gun laws are in both cities, in both states. And so it's a fascinating study. Now you've got a new book, John, and it's called On the Brink. At the Brink, rather. Welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me on.
Haven't had a chance to read At the Brink, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to have to get your publisher to send me a copy so I can review that. Will Obama push us over the edge? So what does that edge look like?
Well, it depends on what topic you're talking about, but I think the damage to healthcare system, the economy, I think he's done a lot of damage to. The question is whether we can take advantage of the few options that we have available to try to fix this. I think one of the reasons why I wrote the book was because of the debate that we just had on the sequester and also the debate that's coming up this month, the end of this month, on the debt ceiling limit increase. The president makes lots of claims that we can't even slow the rate of government growth or somehow it's going to hurt the economy, or that we'll go into default if we don't increase it. Both the statements are false. And what I try to do in the book is go through some of those arguments and explain why we need to take advantage of this opportunity to restrain the growth of government. We've had
John, I appreciate it. I've got a lot of questions, and so I'd love to have more of a back and forth, rather a little more quickly here, if you don't mind. I know you could take the entire segment just talking about this, but I want to cover some spots. Do want to mention that I think you're probably on a cell phone. You found a pretty good spot here during the end of your answer. If you could stay there, that would help a lot too. So when you look at this various front out here, the various areas out here, you kind of get the impression from the title of the book that the policies of this administration that have not really made America better at all on any measure. If anything, things have gotten continuously worse. Are those intentional? Is there some, desire here to create more crisis so that they can have more things to take advantage of?
Well, I do think they do take advantage of the crises. I'm not going to get into anybody's mind on whether they're trying to do something on purpose or not. I'm not really sure that that's useful to think about it that way. To me, the bottom line is what effect is this policy having? What you find, you look across the world, the countries that have followed the same type of policy of massive increases in government spending, massive increases in debt, they're the countries that are in trouble right now. The countries that have restrained government debt, those are the ones who've been doing very well.
Yeah.
And
no question about it. So, John, let me ask you then, we hit kind of an interesting point in American economic history with a $16.5 trillion debt now quickly approaching $17 trillion. We know from economic history, look at other countries, the silent decade that began in Japan happened right almost immediately after it hit a situation where their debt equaled their GDP. Our debt now equals our GDP. Is that going to be the new normal, this idea of we're lucky we'll get 1 or 2% increases in our GDP?
Well, I think when you have large deficits like that or large debt, it means you're going to have higher future taxes, and higher future taxes, just like the huge increases in regulation and other things that we've been having right now, discourage investment. People worry about what can happen to a country when it has such large debt and how it's going to be able to respond and whether it's going to be able to pay. The problem that countries like Greece and Spain have faced is that they have such large debt. If interest rates go up, they'll find that situations that have been difficult to deal with become impossible. And the same situation is something we've right now. Interest rates are at historic lows. If they even got to kind of the average over the last 30 years, we'd be seeing well over a $500 billion increase in our deficit just from the increased interest payments that we have to pay. Mm-hmm. You add in the additional risk. I mean, people know what happens to themselves if they have a hard time paying bills. The creditors are going to charge them higher interest rates, and what is a $500 billion increase plus in the deficit may turn into $700 billion, and things can spiral out of control fairly quickly then.
So do you think, talking to Dr. John Lott, author of the newest book, At the Brink, his book Freedomnomics, one of my favorite, do you think that what's happening right now with the Federal Reserve not raising the interest rate is just to avoid? We hear the reason why is they want to keep on adding stimulus. They don't believe the economy is ready for a higher interest rate. Do you think it really is because of the fact that they know it would create complete economic meltdown if they went ahead and increased the rate? Do you think that's playing a role in their decision making?
Well, I think the Federal Reserve has very little effect in terms of being able to lower interest rates. The reason why interest rates are low right now is that people just don't want to go and borrow because they're concerned about lots of things in the future. And, that I think is a big reason. People are still saving money, but they're not willing to go and borrow. And it's true not just in the United States, but it's true in many other parts of the world, too.
Well, it seems to me that if they raised the prime to some real market level, interest rates would have to go up. I mean, we saw that with Paul Volcker, right?
What they do, what you're talking about, the overnight lending that they make banks, that's pretty selective. That really doesn't control the interest rates that are there. If they were actually increasing the money supply dramatically, what you would actually see is higher interest rates of people, particularly longer-term interest rates, because people would be concerned about inflation that would be occurring.
But they are increasing the money supply. We've seen a $1.5 trillion increase in the money supply one day. Just 2 years ago. We've never seen that in the history of our country before. And if anyone looks at any basic products like groceries, they're seeing a 20 to a 30% increase because that's one of the few things where demand's going to require people they're going to get their food. The only thing you're not seeing increases in prices is areas that are soft where people don't have to buy those things.
Right. Well, there are two different things that are going on here. One is when we're talking about increases in the money base, you have to realize that paper dollars are just one part of the money supply. I mean, you have checks, you have other things which are very close substitutes that are there. And the broader measures of money supply haven't really gone up as much as just the increase in paper that's there. And you've also at the same time had what we call a velocity, the rate at which money turns over has fallen. And so one of the reasons why they've been increasing the money supply, even though the broader measures, as I say, haven't increased as much, is just to balance off this reduction in velocity to try to keep the total money supply relatively constant. And one way you can look at that is just by looking at long-term interest rates. Long-term interest rates, 10-year bonds, are very low. If investors thought that inflation was going to be picking up overall, then you'd have to have a big premium for these long-term bonds in order to get people to go and hold them. They don't want to go and lend money to somebody else if the amount of money that they get back isn't going to be worth as much in the end. But beyond that, it's true. I mean, definitely food prices have gone up, but overall, the price level hasn't really risen.
And that, I think, has to do with the fact that people are afraid of making those purchases. There's this bizarre concept out there called biflation, where, we have inflation in some items and deflation in other items. No, we don't have any deflation. The word inflation has to do with currency. Too much money chasing too few goods. And believe me, that is the case. The only reason why we don't see these high prices across the board is because there was enough padding there for people to lower the cost of their goods and services. And so, anyway, John, love having you on. Love your work. Encourage people to check it out, johnrlott.blogspot.com. That's johnrlott, LOTT.blogspot.com. I'm Kevin Price. Stay tuned for more right after this.